What is up, gang? It is I, Carlton Flowers, your crypto pro.
Yay!
And tonight, I'm going to give you a preview of some of the magic that we are going to be able to pull off when the bull market comes to the VeVe market. Now, before we start, I must say that none of this is financial advice. Please take this strictly as entertainment purposes only, but we are going to be looking at the chart of one item, and it's going to be the Smorkin Labbit Red, because this is a good example of what we will be able to decipher as far as where the momentum is going for an item when it enters into an uptrend. There's not really much you can do in a bear market with these VeVe items when it comes to TA. It's not as easy as what you can do with cryptocurrency projects. But with the action that we have seen here in the last few days, I wanted to show you just what we're going to be able to do once we start to dig in deep on the TA with the individual items. So first of all, shout out to Homie the Clown.
Yay!
For providing this wonderful website that is free to use, and you can go to EcomiWiki.com and sign up for a free account, and you can look at these charts yourself. So I have been looking at a lot of these indicators to find out which ones are best to give us clues on the action. And we're going to start out with the awesome indicator. Here we go, the awesome oscillator, rather. And the main thing that I am going to be using these charts for is to try to determine where the trend is going. Are we trending up or trending down? And as you can see here, we get a histogram down here that oscillates around a zero line, where you got the green bars when you're rising, the red bars when you're falling. And so when you cross that zero line, it's a confirmation that you're in that downtrend. And you can see that we got to the bottom of this current trend here, and then it turns green. So that means that you're trending back up to the zero line. You got one outlier in red here, but then it continues to the zero line where it crosses over, and we're still printing green bars on the histogram. Now, what does that mean? That means to me that it's too early to tell if this is the end of this current move up. Notice how we popped up and then we came back down a little bit, but now we're sitting in the middle of a fat green candle here on this 6-month chart. I've got 3 of these. I think I got 2 at sub 20 gem prices. And then what I will use this for is determine when it's time to unload one. Now, during the bear market, you're lucky if you can unload one at the top of a peak here as the price trends back downwards. And so these indicators can be used to let you know if you have reached that peak. So notice here you had the big pop up right here, and then you trended down. And so once you get to this point, right there where the bars turn from red or green to red, that lets you know that the pivot is in. Now, if you decided to unload at that point, you would be right here at about the $45 price. It's hard to know when you're at the peak. There's no way you can really tell here without confirmation, which would be that point where you go from the green bars to the red bars. And that's why right now, at this point, I'm not looking to sell one just yet, because I think this one could sneak up a little bit more. Now, the one difference between this pop and all the previous ones is that this one seems to be forming what we call a bull flag. And that's where you get a flagpole and a little pennant. This would be like a pennant bull flag. And if you're lucky, what happens at the end of these, when you get near this point at the tip right there, they usually break out to the positive side. Now, since this is a bear market, we can't guarantee that. But I'm going to hang on to my 3 little red labbits and wait to see if we have one more pop up, at which point I'll unload. Now, according to this pennant, if we break out, what you can do in technical analysis is grab the flagpole and replace it somewhere here in the tip, and it tells you where it could go if it is a bull flag. So this tells us that we could possibly get around the $67 price. Now, that might not happen, again, because we're in a bear market, so there's no way to really tell. Now, let's move on to the next indicator, let me look on my list and go to the next favorite, which is the Bollinger Bands. Now I'll show you how you use these Bollinger Bands. When you're trading within the upper and lower boundary of the bands, you're just pretty much going to go sideways. And then when the bands tighten down, like right here, notice they're really tight, that's when you have a chance of a pop. And sure enough, we did pop out of here. And notice how the price jumped out on top of the bands, and then it goes back down as it crosses over that upper boundary, and it finds this average line, this moving average. So here we tightened up again, and sure enough, we broke out of it. Now, this is interesting because once we touched down to the upper limit of the bands right here, we moved up again. That's very bullish. Because when you ride on top of the breakout of the limits of the band, that says you have a very strong move. Now, normally, like here, we broke out at this point. We go up to the peak, and then we come back down, and we broke back into the neutral zone in between. But here we see we touch down and we blast it off again. That's what usually happens during bull markets, where you bounce around and you ride the upper limit of the band outside of this area in between. So that's another indication that maybe I'll hang on to this a little while longer to see if we move upward into the $60 to $70 range. All right, let's get rid of that one. The next indicator will be the disparity index. Let's see if we've got some clues here. Here we have it. And you notice that on the disparity index, it kind of pops up when we have this peak, and when it falls back down, that could be an indication that you've hit your peak and it's time to unload if you're swing channel trading rather. All right, so as we move to this current one, we notice that we have a double top on the disparity as we're doing this little consolidation move right here. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. And this is another indication that will let me know that maybe let's wait and see if we pop up yet again. All right, next indicator will be the MACD, Moving Average Convergence Divergence. Some people call it the MACD. I don't call it MACD because I'm old school. All right, let's see what the MACD is telling us. Now, downstairs we have these two oscillators. We have a fast line, and that's the orangest one, and the slow line, which is the purple one. I said that backwards, the purple is the fast line in this example. When the fast line is above the slow line, like what you see right here, and it's pointing upwards, that means you're in an uptrend. Whenever the fast line crosses over the slow line, it means that you're going to reverse trend. So right here, you had this bearish cross, that's what you call it. And when you look upstairs, that coincides with this price right here at about 50 bucks. So if you were still holding on at that point, this would be your time to let that item go and try to sell it on the market. It might be too late though, because at this point you're sliding down and you would have to start chasing that price down. So this is not a good swing trade here because it would be too late after the crossover. If you could sell it while they're wide open right here, you get a much better chance. When you're trying to unload, it's best to unload between the time that you have the bottom and the point that you hit the top. So here is the channel that you want to get rid of an item because you list it and the price is going to move up and it'll be easy to get rid of your item if you have enough buying pressure. But once you swing downwards, when it comes to these NFTs, it's very hard to get rid of them because you're going to have to undercut other people or pray that the price bounces up. Like you had a bottom point here and we jump back up there. That could help you to get rid of that item. Now, right now, we've got 2 green candles in a row, which says that if I wanted to unload at 40, it might be pretty easy to do because price is probably going up because we have the fast line above the slow line right here. They're gapped open and they're moving in the upward direction. So this would be a good point to unload if you bought one at say 20, or like me, my cheapest one I got was at 17 bucks. So I could unload right now, but I'm going to be greedy and wait until it moves up higher. Next indicator, let's get rid of this one and we're going to look at the moving average. So let's pop this up here And let's make this yellow so we can see it on this dark background. Now the moving average is what it is, moving average price. We average so many previous price points and we make a dot on the line, and then you'll take those dots and you connect them, and as you go, after each point on the line, we'll connect the dots and you get this running moving average. Now when the moving average is pointing upwards, you're in an uptrend and that's a good time to sell. When the moving average is trending downward, that's a bad time to sell because, again, you're going to be chasing that price downward and it's going to be very difficult to unload. All right, that's the moving average. Let's move to the next one. Let's try the moving average deviation. So we'll leave the moving average up there and we'll pop up the deviation, and we'll leave this one with a green and a red. And we see down below that it has a histogram. So when we're printing bars above the zero line, you're in an uptrend. And when you're printing bars below the zero line, you're in a downtrend. If it's red, you're trending down. If it's green, you're trending up. Now here's a bad indication because we're currently on a red bar. So that is in direct in conflict with the other indicators that tell us that we're possibly moving up. So put 1 point to the argument that this thing might trend back down and that we've already seen the peak. Okay, let's get rid of that and move to the next one. Let's try the moving average envelope. Here we go. This one I like. This is a pretty cool indicator here because it gives 3 moving average lines. And when volatility is high, the band is thicker. When volatility is low, the band is tighter. And this one can also let you know where the trend is going. So we have an upward slope here. You see that? So while the bands are moving upward here, we know that there's a possibility the price might continue up. And also, when the bands are narrow, see the distance between these lines here? That's when we can expect that we could get a pop. And that's when the lines will move apart, somewhat similar to the Bollinger Bands. So put a point for the bullish argument that price might go a little higher. All right, on to the next one. Now we'll look at the ever so popular RSI. Where is our RSI? Relative Strength Index. There we go. And we get a red and a blue line. And the RSI is similar to a stochastic, where you get this moving, oscillating line that goes up and down between the 80 line, which is the boundary for being oversold, and the 20 line, which is the boundary for being above the 80 is overbought, below the 80 is oversold. So notice how we touched on that line each time and we got rejected. So let's look at it. Here was a rejection at this peak. And then here is a rejection at this peak, and it looks like we have a rejection at this current peak. So that's another point, 2 points for the argument that we might trend downward, but we have more bullish indications than bearish thus far. All right, let's clear that out. Let's try the stochastic. I love the stochastic, and it's something I use a lot of in regular crypto TA. We're going to move this %K smoothing to 3. And I like my fast line to be in this light blue. There we go. And I like my slow line to be red or orange. We're going to make that orange so it matches my regular TA that I do on cryptocurrency projects. Now this one is moving a lot. I probably would have to slow this line down. And what you can see here is that when you get to the top of the 80 line, like right here, we went above the 80 line that you can barely see because it's black. That coincides with this peak here. Then we downtrend, and down at the bottoms, this is where you buy. And you sell when you get to these peaks, okay? So sometimes the peaks coincide. Sometimes you get a peak here and there's nothing but side banding, and you didn't get much return for this peak upstairs on the price line. So that lets you know that this is a very weak upward movement right here, and it petered out right away and started to move down. On the next stochastic peak, we have this peak right here, and then after this falling peak, we just continued to move down, and then we sideband for this area, and we've got a series of increasing peaks, 1, 2, 3. And so with these first two happening and no price movement, The last one gave us this pop right here, and we're moving upward. It's still pointing upwards, which is a slight indication that we might continue up. Next indicator. Let's look at the tricks. And this is my favorite one. It's similar to the stochastic, but has a much smoother line. And I think I'm going to be using this one a lot in the future. Okay, so here's the tricks, and we're going to use an orange line for the single period. And let's try a red line maybe for the other one. Well, hold on. Let's go orange and greenish. Here we go. And so the greenish one is going to be the 20 period, and the orange one is going to be the 9 period. So that'll be our fast line. Now, this is a great indicator, and I'll tell you why. This is so smooth. This is the best one that we have here. It takes a lot more movement for this line to take place and gives us a better indication of overall bottom points and overall peaks. So whenever the lines hit the bottom down here, this means that we're at a possible low point. And then when the fast line, this green one, or I'm sorry, yeah, that is the green one, crosses over the slow line, which is the orangish one, that means change in trend. So that means we're trending up here. But then notice after we get this cross right here that coincides with this point of the chart, that means that you can confirm that you're in a downtrend. But really, it was too late. The time to unload is right in this area here before that crossover happens. So when they are opened up and wide and divergent from each other, that's when you sell right here. Now, during a bear market, they don't last that long, as you can see. And that's why I'm excited about this current one, because it's different than the others. Look at the crossover that happened right here. Now, let's just draw a line and get this point right here where it ended up around, say, 30 bucks. And it was too late to sell after the crossover. So where you would want to sell here is where they're very divergent and running in parallel, moving up. And then you probably would know that after this point, there's a crossover coming, especially when you got one green candle that happened after the peak that is a lower high. Now, on the current price, notice how we're making this little flag here. And notice how we just had a crossover of these oscillators. All right, let's put an arrow here. It's right there. And then notice how the fast line and the slow line are divergent from each other. Okay, in other words, the gap is getting wider and the fast line is curling up. That means that we'll probably move up. That is another point for the bullish argument that we might pop up above that 60 line. So that's about, say, what, 4 or 5 indicators that say bullish, and what was it, 2 or 3 that say bearish. So I'm going to hang on, since the bullish indicators outweigh the bearish indicators. So that's how we use these things to determine what direction are we going in? Where is the trend headed? Are we still moving up, or are we moving down? Now, there's one more on here. I'll pull this up. And it's the Williams %R, I think. And let's make it a nice bright color so we can see it. We'll make it white. Here we go. And this is not telling us much. It's a pretty flat, smooth line. But notice that it trends down as we're going into the side banding area. Then we popped up and it slightly moved up. Then it starts to flatten out and move down, and it's slightly moving up right now, which says that we could continue up. So that would be another point for the bearish, even though this one is a pretty weak indicator. So let's get rid of that. And then let's just see if we can see any other evidence if we zoom in on the chart. Yeah, all right. So on the 1 month, we can see the flag, and it is actually a bull flag, a bull pennant. Let's just draw some lines on here. This was the flagpole. And then we can either turn this into a pennant like this, and it's too early to tell just yet, or we can make this into a bull flag where you have a somewhat of a parallel flag like that. And then, of course, as I said before, you take the flagpole and you replace it and stick it up here at the breakout point, and it tells you how high the breakout could go. So keep your eyes on the smorkin' red labbit, and we'll see how this works out and see if these indicators are steering us in the right direction. And this is how we're going to be able to make these calls when the bear market hits and we're in an uptrend and we start to rally, the FOMO hits, and we work towards our next parabolic run. That's when this will be of the most use. So again, shout out to Omi the Clown.
Yay!
And also shout out to my boys in the crew, boys and girls in the Crypto Pro VeVe Telegram group, Dokta Strange.
Yay!
Check out his reports on the comics. I can't wait to do TA on the comics. And also shout out to my Canadian boys up there above the border in Ice Country, the Superstars. I know they're very excited and waiting to see me do some more TA on this stuff. And until then, stay tuned. I will have more. Please like, comment, and subscribe to the Crypto Pro channel. And you can join us in the Telegram group for good, clean chat. We don't do any shilling. We don't do any cussing. We don't do any fussing. We just have a good time and share information from one to another. That's all I got. This is Carlton, and I am out.